Reading a book a week is the wrong way to go about reading, and that is because if you read a book a week religiously, you'll just switch to another book. And sure, you may end up taking action for another week or two on the actionable steps from the previous book, but you'll just start doing the new action steps from a new book, not cementing the last ones so they eventually disappear from your life sooner or later. And that's why I created the 7-day mastery framework to make changes you make to your life from reading to stick. This framework will also help you extract more value out of the book, because after your first read through, you usually extract like 30 to 40% of like life-changing value out of the book. But this framework helps you increase that to around 60-70%-ish. Without further ado, here's the chapter list. Chapter 1, 7-day mastery framework. Chapter 2, reading stage. Chapter 3, mastery stage. Chapter 4, advice for practical application. And Chapter 5, how to stay consistent. Chapter 1, first let's look at why reading a book a week, like everyone is trying to do, is really a subpar tactic. When reading a book a week, you usually split your reading page count by 7, so you know exactly how many pages are you doing each day. But that's the problem. On every one of these days, you're working with the incomplete information. Let's put it in an example. You've picked up 5 a.m. Club, and you'll use this book as a map to a top level morning routine. Okay, cool. But by that one book a week approach, you would be given only 1/7 piece of map every day. And worse, not even a part of the map that you need to locate your current position. That would be kind of tough on you, wouldn't it? Like, it would be so much more inefficient than if you had the whole map ASAP, right? And this is where the 7-day mastery framework shines, because it takes the 7 days you would normally spend all of this time reading. It divides that in two. And that is because after just first 4 days, you're already working with like full map. So you have 3 days to take that fully functional map to achieve what you are setting to achieve. If you read a book a week, normally you would just read. You are taking action on the same day that you read also, in both cases. But after reading the last page in reading a book a week, you wouldn't have that stage to really dial down the approach to your new habits, action steps, whatever the book installed in you. And because of that, the effects of reading a book a week aren't as good as you might expect. Sure, you are doing a lot of things, you are busy, but the quality of the things you do is worse, and that is because you didn't have time, that after you got the information, you didn't have time to master it deliberately without switching to a new book, new tasks, new things new habits to install in your life. And this is the reason why 7-day mastery framework is as powerful as it is, because it puts so much scrutiny on execution of the book, because it doesn't glorify reading as a virtue. I don't glorify reading as a virtue. I glorify action as a virtue, and action springs from acquired knowledge. I have a good analogy for it. Reading is like buying stocks. Until you sell, you don't profit. Until you apply, you don't benefit. Simple. That's why action and applying what you're reading is really stressed in this framework, and is almost given a priority in terms of the time span, but realistically you will not be reading 4 hours per day to finish a 12-hour book in 3 days. And this is where the 7-day mastery framework is shining, because it's not as stiff as as reading a book a week. If you finish the book in 3 days, go about that. If you finish the book in 5 days, that's also okay. There's no problem in that. The fact is, this is like the golden ratio, which consistency will be good and impact will be good. The 4 and 3 day split is just what was the best from my experimentation, but other firms work too. With The Secret, I read it in 1 day, and I've been mastering my approach to the action steps for 6 days, and it worked fabulously. Chapter 2, Reading Stage. When you are reading a book a week, you usually read for around 1 hour-ish per day. If you are to condense that to 4 days, it will mean that you are not reading 1 hour per day, but 1 hour and 45 minutes per day. So it's not so bad, right? Like, it's just one more session of reading. And by the way, don't read in sessions more than 1 hour without any rest, because the absorption of information just kind of goes down there. So after like 1 hour, just kind of take a break, a few minutes to kind of, stretch your legs, look further than like 5 feet from you to kind of not mess with your sight, move around, maybe take some notes. That would be also pretty good, but that's a side point. What is really necessary in this section is that you apply few tactics. First technique is leaving breadcrumbs. Leaving breadcrumbs is nothing more than leaving traces for your second go through the book. And I don't mean you will read the book page by page, word by word. No. I mean leaving highlights, underlinings, all the stuff that I'm talking about in a video that I'll link down below. And you're doing that because when you enter the mastery stage, you will refer back to those breadcrumbs to dial down perfectly your actions so that you ensure that these new habits, behaviors, they stick. And believe me, 3 days to dial down your approach is often enough to start a good habit, because in the first 3 days you will go through like most problems and resistances that might pop up. You can kind of get the idea of what can go wrong after you do it like first few times. But back to the reading stage. So naturally, when you are reading through your book, leave the breadcrumbs so that you can refer back to the information to dial down your approach. When you're reading, be an active reader. You've heard about being an active listener on lectures, from your teachers, etc. But nobody taught you how to be an active reader. The school system was designed to teach you how to read so that you can perform simple tasks. Not how to read in order to get the most out of the book that you're reading. Not to read to change your life, but to perform tasks. So how do you combat that? I've made a full video about that exact thing. That's the same video I've linked down below, but Cliff Notes version for this video. Essentially, you need to modulate your pace, and when you see like author is talking bullshit, okay, I'm just speeding it up. Now, when you start to read that, oh wait, he's getting onto something, you slow down. By that simple action, you keep yourself present, you keep yourself focused on what you're reading. You're not focusing on moving your eyes and reading like, you read automatically. You kind of like, letting yourself like kind of mindlessly go through each page. No, with modulating your pace, you're forcing your brain to focus 100% on what you are reading. Of course, if you're reading for leisure time, it's not the way you will be reading, but if you're going to read a book that will be essentially a map to a results that you're looking, well, that method of reading ensures that you will more likely keep the information that you are reading and that you are processing them all the time, not just when you catch yourself drift off to your own thoughts and snap yourself back to actually being present and thinking through what the author is saying. During the reading stage, you are also taking action as soon as you read about something. Like, as soon as you read about something, you mark that part of the book. After you're done with your reading session, you dedicate 15 minutes so that you can schedule it in, or if you can do it like right away, do it. And it will be amazing in how good results you are getting. Chapter 3, Mastery Stage. Mastery stage is all about taking the action steps that you've acted on in a previous stage and refining your approach to them. It's all about optimization and application. Things that you didn't apply, you apply here. Things that you did apply, you also apply, but you refine your approach to them. For example, you streamline the way you habit stack things with your new habits, because you've done the action steps. You realize there's like small improvements you can do. That, oh, if I want to go to the gym, I'll lay out my clothes before. Or with other like examples of, like, when you're doing the affirmations, you realize like, oh wait, a notebook with affirmations doesn't really work that well. I just prefer doing it in my head. And what you find in your next few days, that when you're doing affirmations from like The Secret, you're just like, wait, affirmations in one session works, but what works better is like multiple sessions, that every time before I start doing a thing, first I visualize doing it and it going well, and it goes well. I did this with this video, by the way. You can imagine multiple of examples like so, and guess what? You wouldn't do that if you read a book a week, because you didn't have in your plan, because like most people, you wouldn't have in your plan time to take action. This is what people mess up. They read, but then they act out those actions really weakly. Like, they cannot get much momentum because they may do the action steps for a few days, but they are immediately interrupted by the action step from their new book. And they are essentially giving themselves a shiny object syndrome, where they're jumping from one boat to the other, not sailing far in any of them, while also rowing just the same amount as someone who's doing the framework that I've shown you. Which is just fucking sad, bro. Like, I pity those people. And important part about the mastery stage is that if you need to, you can stretch it. 7-day mastery framework is 7-day in most cases. With with many things, it will take you way longer than 7 days. That's why I think reading 52 books a year doesn't make much sense. It's illogical. Like, you wouldn't try to get good at 52 sports in 1 year. You would suck at all of them. So why don't you commit a bit more time to books that you think that are the most important? Never Finished was the book that I stretched out to 2 weeks, because I read it in 5 days, and then I've put the rest of the days into the mastery stage, where I was taking action on challenges. I was planning out the way I keep doing things after I'm done with the mastery stage. Because mastery stage is not a one and done thing. It is a gateway to making yourself consistent, because you've already allowed yourself to be uninterruptedly focused on making the habit like as convenient for your life as possible in mastery stage. And you do that by those small improvements and by planning in advance. And you make yourself accountable. You put a habit tracker for your book. Like, you put a new habit tracker on the wall. You put a lot of reminders on your phone. You set an alarm at the specific hour where you're gonna do this specific action step, and when you're setting up the alarm, you're adding the label of the name of the action steps you're gonna take at this exact hour every single day. Because through trial and error for your first 3 days, you dial down a little roughly where the time should be where you're gonna do the action step. And then after the first week or two, you micro-tuned it to, like, pretty much perfection, and it's gonna become automatic soon enough. That's all the mastery stage is about. It's about making sure that you refine your approach so that you can stick to the commitments of those new habits, new behaviors long term. Because as I told you, reading is like stocks. Until you sell, you don't profit. Until you apply, you don't benefit. If you take just this from this video, I've done my job. Of course, I would love to, see you succeed with the 7-day mastery framework, but just one thing, this. I accidentally thrown in chapter 4 and 5 into chapter 3, but I'll just do a timestamps, and there will not be a actual, me saying the chapter name, but there will be timestamps for your review later if you need it. So anyhow, if you like this video, subscribe, and if you want one-on-one coaching with me so that I help you make reading more impactful in your life and help you do it better, then hit me up on Instagram and book in your first 15-minute call for free. So I'll see you in the next video.